Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So, over this past summer, I released a short Game of Thrones fan film where I revealed at the end that I had intentions to create a Game of Thrones Battle of the Trident fan film. And because we're now almost out of October, someone has finally asked, where is the Game of Thrones fan film? Have I shelved it? Have I just given up on it, given how season 8 has gone? To answer this question, no. The film is still on, and we're still putting it together, but we have run into certain complications that have caused delays during this entire production. That if we hadn't run into these problems, the film probably would have come out a couple of months earlier. But really, if I have to be completely honest with you, a lot of these problems are entirely my fault, because most of these problems and delays had to do with script changes and having to refilm certain scenes, because I'm a nitpicky bastard when it comes to my more cinematic videos. So I feel like the best way to explain to you guys why the film has taken so long is to explain how the filming process has gone so far. Hopefully you guys will understand. So when we started this project, I decided that I was going to sort of alter the historical accounts for what the event was. For those of you who aren't caught up on your Game of Thrones history, the Battle of the Trident is an event that happens during Robert's rebellion against the Targaryen dynasty, where Robert faces off against Rhaegar Targaryen and Robert kills him. And as the historical accounts go, there was like 75,000 people involved in this big clash of soldiers. So I didn't really have 75,000 people to use. So I did the only thing I could do for someone who really wanted to make a fan film about this historical moment, and just tweak certain details, where I was just going to have Robert and Rhaegar fight in a river and Robert wins, because then it would at least keep to the same theme of what happened. And those were my original plans. And I had written out several big, long, complicated scripts for this, where it would explain everything, and it would tell the story almost the exact same way. It would just negate the need for big giant armies. But once the first day of filming started, things quickly started to fall apart. The scenes, the dialogue was so long and complicated, the actors I was working with were so green, myself included, that it was really hard for us to actually get through all of our lines in the manner that I had envisioned, because you know, things that you think of in your head always go perfectly, but when you apply them in real life, it's just not that simple, you know? It's actually really funny. Just to film 5 scenes in anything, that's a 2 or 3 hour project, no matter what. Don't believe what anyone tells you. If they say, hey man, I just want to film a couple scenes, it'll take us 20 minutes tops. That is bullshit, okay? They're not taking into account time it takes to set up the equipment, positioning the equipment, getting dressed, getting everyone in character, getting the set right, and getting everyone into position. That in of itself takes an hour and a half every time. It doesn't matter if you're working with 2 people. It's always going to take over an hour, I promise you. So first day of filming went horribly. I looked over the footage and it was just a mess. I couldn't use any of it, but it only inspired me to try and do better, where I took the script, I looked at it again, and I'm not the kind of person that needs to look at things 4 or 5 times before I start seeing what's wrong with it. And I started looking through it and I went, this is irrelevant, don't need this, don't need this, don't need this, just all of this gone. And by the time it was all said and done, I had whittled this thing down to a nice, short, concise little thing that would be much easier to film. And due to other certain complications, it still took us 2 weeks before we could start filming again, and basically had to redo everything that we had started with. And let me also add that we're not working with a full staff film crew. To say that we were working with a skeleton crew is also a gross overstatement. Like, we're working with the bone marrow of a skeleton crew, and at certain points, the people who should only be doing one job were working multiple jobs. And this is in no way to try and brag, but just for example, both me and Matthew had to take on several responsibilities, because we just at the time didn't know anyone in the acting or filming community here in Oregon. And I personally, I took on acting, partial directing, costume making, script writing, I'm not sure what the exact terminology of that is, and drawing out the storyboards. Matt took on partial directing, cinematography, scouting out locations, and scouting out talent. And it was actually through his efforts of gathering more people that we actually started amassing a small army. And it was at that point I was like, okay, maybe we can tweak things back to the original story. So, you know, rewrites. Yay! Matt was pissed, by the way. I'm not gonna lie about that. He is so easy to work with, and he's very gracious for putting up with my shit for all this time. But at the same time, it's just like, I could see in his eyes like, hey, since we got all these people, let's just do the easy thing and just tweak things back to the original story. And he's just like, yeah, okay, you son of a bitch. So I'm so sorry, Matt. You know I love you. And God bless him. He took on so much. At the end of all of that, he also took on editing the project. And for everyone who came out and helped me with my project, I want to say right now, right away, I can't thank you enough for all the time that you put in. Even if you just showed up for just one day, again, thank you. Your support meant the world to me, and I don't think I'll ever be able to repay you for your kindness for helping me with my project. So I'm going to start rambling if I don't keep moving forward. So as we went on and we started meeting more people with this community, our numbers started to bolster. We actually started to get a real army for this film project, but that also came as a double-edged sword. We got more people, that meant we needed more costumes. So that meant I needed more time to make more costumes, which was just further delay. But it was also through meeting all these people, a part of this filming community, that we met more professional people involved, and we started making friends with them, and we took time off of our project over the summer to work on their projects. And a couple of these guys were very grateful, and one of them is a professional film editor, and because of all the work that we helped with on his project, he's offered to do my project for me. And again, let me remind you that I was originally having Matt edit the film after everything else he's been doing for me. I'd essentially been running the guy ragged, so I just couldn't keep putting all this responsibility on weight on his shoulders. I had to take that off of him. So I'm going to be giving that off to our new friend who will be doing this editing project. So that's why the Game of Thrones project has taken so long. We have all the footage now, and all we really have to do is just get it through the final stages of editing. I'm not going to give a release date because I've given release dates before in the past, and it's always fallen flat on its face. So I won't do that. But again, to everyone who's been involved, who's helped out, I can't thank you enough for this project. But if I could offer, I'm not really sure what to call it. I guess it's sort of like a word of caution for this project. We filmed an incredible amount of footage, literally hours and hours of footage that I have to siphon through to find all the good parts that we're going to use for ultimately a 20-minute maximum video. So that means a lot of that footage isn't going to be used. And I just don't want anyone to think that if I stressed that I wanted a certain shot filmed and we don't use it, that it was essentially a waste of time. Everything that we filmed is ultimately a lesson, and it teaches us how to be better filmmakers, and we just never really know what we're going to use once we get into editing. So if I stress that I wanted something filmed a certain way and it's not used, it doesn't necessarily have to do with anything along the lines of acting or the way it was shot. It just has to do with the flow and the pacing of the film. And if for whatever reason in my head it looked like it was going to work in my head, and then on paper it sounded good, but when we applied it to film it just didn't mesh right, I can't use that. And that's just really for the benefit of the final product of the film. So I just want you guys to keep those expectations in mind once the film is finally all put together and done. I just don't want anyone to feel like their efforts were in vain. It's just sort of how filming goes at times. Again, we filmed hours and hours and hours of footage, and it's all being rendered down to a 20-minute maximum film. Things are going to get cut, and that's just all we can do. But for anyone who's been a part of this project, the very least I can do for you is if you want the scene that you were in that we had to cut out of the film, in the film, I can have like a director's cut made for you where we'll put it into the film as best we can, and then we can give it to you to use for whatever purposes you want. It's the least I can do for all the efforts that you've given me. I hope you guys can understand that, and you, the viewer, can understand the trials that we've gone through in making this film happen. I'm very confident that you're going to enjoy it. With all that being said, that's the story of how we've made this film. I hope you guys will tune in when we finally upload the video, and I hope to see you in the next video on my channel. Have a good day. See you guys.